मेरा नाम रमेश है सर। बचपन से सपना था कि हार्वर्ड जाके पढूं। दिन रात एसएटी के लिए प्रिपेयर करता हूँ सर। मेरी हॉबी है कोरा पे जाके हार्वर्ड की सैलरी देखना और हार्वर्ड के कैंपस के वीडियोस देखना।
How much money do your parents make? What car do your parents drive?
एक्टिव है सर।
Next. What car do your parents drive?
Ferrari.
That looks like a joke, but it's actually a reality. A research paper we went through states a mind-blowing stat. In total, 43% of white admits to Harvard College are athletes, legacies, dean's lists, or the children of faculty and staff. Legacy admissions, whereby applicants with family ties to a university are given preferential treatment. A 2011 study of admissions decisions at 30 highly selective colleges and universities found that legacy status accounted for more than threefold increase in acceptance. Legacy admissions is basically a form of legalized bribery. In this study, 10% of the admitted Harvard class are recruited athletes, which is fine, that's fair. Dean's list, which is like the donation seats list, applicants seem to get a big admissions advantage. Based on raw numbers, about 30 to 50% of applicants on the Dean's list get admission. From AKR's estimates, a Dean's list applicant, which is like a donation seat applicant, is 7 times more likely to be admitted than an otherwise comparable non-Dean's list applicant. Using the results in that table, a similar calculation can be made for athletes. A typical applicant with a 1% chance of admission would see his admission likelihood increase to 98% if he were a recruited athlete. Now, with the athletes bit, I'm okay with that. I think it's fair that we also encourage sports. But with the Dean's list and the donation list, if 43% of a college is coming from people that the college favors, then it's not really a fair system, is it? For example, take Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law and senior aide, who was admitted to Harvard, generally considered the nation's most prestigious university after his father made a $2.5 million donation to the school, despite the younger Kushner's less than stellar high school academic record. Basically, this person did not study very well, but his dad had money, so he got in. And that makes up 43% of Harvard, along with the athletes. Now, I understand India's obsession with the Ivy League. You're based out of here, you've seen these college campuses in movies, your parents have dreams about you going there, and for you, it might be a dream. And people might tell you that if you don't have a degree, you might end up doing very badly. Now, there are benefits to degrees, but I want to pick up the point of people thinking that not having a degree will make you stay poor. In particular, I have a problem with a segment of Hasan Minhaj's video.
If you grow up poor and graduate from college, you have a 90% chance of getting out of poverty. In the 90s, jobs that paid at least $35K were held by college grads 40% of the time. Today, it's 55%.
You saw that? Despite the fact that it says that having a college degree is the difference between being miserable and not, it's actually not. So after watching this video, Hasan Minhaj says that, well, if you have a college degree, you don't get into poverty. But that is not exactly true. There is a difference between correlation and causation, and this is something that science has known for centuries. Most of America forgets this. It is a known fact that if you are richer or your parents are richer, you suffer less. But it's also no coincidence that the richer you are, the more likely you are to go to college. So yes, if you do have a degree, your chances of success increase, but it's not because of the degree. It's because of the preconditions that were in place for you to get the degree. The ones who have the most position themselves to get even more. It's wealth, generational or not, that differentiates people in the US suffering or not a college degree. You want to know what really causes suffering? It's poverty, generational poverty or poverty at the individual level.
अगर आपको जिंदगी में सक्सेसफुल होना है तो आपको क्या चाहिए? सिर्फ एक MBA की डिग्री हार्वर्ड से. And how much do you think that is? Just $50,000. You can hustle and get it.
ये डॉलर क्या होता है?
You can do it. आप कर सकते हो.
हम भी कर सकते हैं. हम भी कर सकते हैं.
Now back to colleges. The cost of college has been sharply rising since the 1980s and far, far beyond inflation numbers. It's not even correlated, right? It's just college like up and to the right. Now, despite these rising costs, Indian parents still want their kids to go abroad and go to an Ivy League college. The problem here is that this is a middle class mindset. If you're a middle class parent in India, you hope that your children go abroad so that you can get upward mobility. The problem is that everyone in India thinks they're middle class. People who make crores a year think they're middle class. And at the same time, I know people who are making 30,000 rupees a year that still think they're middle class. So the problem is, while technically the upper class who call themselves middle class can easily afford college, the smaller people here get screwed. And more importantly, data says that the fees that you are paying isn't going to student benefits or teachers. In the last few decades, it's been going to principals and mostly administrative staff. Basically, the bureaucrats, the people who are not even in the colleges on a day-to-day. It's not that the cost of college facilities has gone up, it's simply greed. Now let's come back to our friends in India going abroad. Including stay, most Indians spend $50 to $100K on college. Many of them take loans or expect their parents to take loans. I once had a friend who went abroad to study chemical engineering and spent $50,000. Now, chemical engineering is not a very sought after thing in India, but he still came back and realized that the best paying job he could find was paying him just 4 lakhs. You think this is a joke? $50,000 degree and then making only 4 lakhs an annum, but it's a reality. To pay back the loan with interest, it would take him 2 decades or probably even more at current salary. So what did he do? He took a flight back and took a job in the US itself. Leaving for college in the US, especially on a loan, is almost a certainty that you leave your parents for 10 to 20 years. Not because you like the US more, some people do, some people just go there and decide this is better than India and stay there, but because you're financially trapped for a decade. You have taken a loan. Many people go to the US with the hope of exposure. You've seen it on TV. You want better opportunities, better quality of life. And many of you just want to escape your homes, right? Many of you even do it to find love. Without realizing it's a 10-year financial prison at minimum. And because of the difference in purchasing power parity, which is the difference in how much a dollar is worth in India versus in the US, Indian jobs will rarely pay you enough to pay off your loans.
Finally, मेरा 2000 करोड़ का लोन अप्रूव हो गया. Wait, what? For what? अरे भाई फॉरेन जाके MBA करना है, आईवी लीग जैसा नेटवर्क और 1-on-1 कोचिंग जहां मिल सके, ये सब कहां मिलेगा?
स्टोआ पे.
स्टोआ? ये स्टोआ क्या है?
अरे भाई थिंक ऑफ इट एज अ ट्रांसफॉर्मेटिव रियल वर्ल्ड लर्निंग पार्टी जिसका थीम ही है बिजनेस मैनेजमेंट.
और ये स्टोआ मिलेगा कहां?
Click the link in the description or just DM us on LinkedIn.
And recently, I've started seeing a newer level of scam where some people in India have the guts to take a loan and then ask others to pay it via crowdfunding. I have no idea what is going on anymore. Harvard is a billion-dollar business, not just an educational institution. You might think Harvard costs a lot and therefore must remain profitable. Actually, Harvard already has a massive bank balance, not because of student fees, but because of donations, which goes all the way back to the dean's list. The top academic institutions in the United States, in fact, are still raising billions of dollars in donations every year. Published by the Council for Advancement and Support of Education, the latest edition of the Voluntary Support for Educational Survey found that donations to US colleges and universities in the academic year ending in June totaled $46.73 billion. Here are the 20 colleges that received the most money, and they accounted for 28% of that total. And guess what? These colleges combined serve a mere 1.6% of the US student population, just 19.9 million undergraduates. The survey highlights the fact that several elite and wealthy colleges are attracting much of the United States' financial resources, despite the fact that they only account for a small section of the overall population. What's even more surprising is that non-alumni individuals also donated $8.57 billion. That's 18.3%, most likely to get their sons or daughters into the college. And forget about the donations. In 2021, operating revenue for Harvard was $5.2 billion. Despite COVID and stay-at-home orders, revenue for Harvard only decreased 5% between 2019 and 2021, despite the fact that most people were studying out of their houses. And the funny thing is, despite their massive bank reserves, Harvard Magazine still asks its readers for donation support.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for donating to Harvard. Thank you.
1 year later.
Harvard Magazine, 10 का 4. Harvard Magazine, ये लो भाई. Harvard Magazine, 10 का 4.
Last year I donated to Harvard. किधर जा रहा है हार्वर्ड का पैसा?
हाँ, किधर जा रहा है ये हार्वर्ड का पैसा?
हाँ, ये किधर जा रहा है हार्वर्ड का पैसा?
Now, serious question here. With that kind of bank balance, with that kind of revenue, with that kind of donation bank balance, couldn't Harvard or any other Ivy college be the loan financier for every accepted student with a low interest rate? The students are borrowing the money and then expected to pay it back, but at a much more reasonable rate. They could get a much more reasonable rate if Harvard or any other Ivy League institution decided to do it. The only risk I can see for an Ivy League institution in this is that students wouldn't be able to pay them back, and the only reason students wouldn't be able to pay them back is if they don't get good jobs. The question is, why are you even accepting students that you don't believe will get good jobs? What was the point of the education? Now, there are some situations where if your household doesn't make enough money, Harvard will actually give you a free seat. They will actually give you a scholarship. However, even if you make a little bit over that threshold, you get stuck. This is why I'm saying, if you are middle class, Harvard and any other Ivy League will really put you into debt. And by the way, here is how Harvard spends that endowment. Just look at this graph. Flexible. Doesn't even have a title to it. It's just flexible. Now back to Indians. We expect 2 million Indian students to be studying abroad by 2024. A recent report estimates that about 8 lakh students travel abroad for higher education every year and spend $28 billion on this. That's 1% of our GDP. And no, that money doesn't impact our GDP. It's literally going to the other countries. Of this, about $6 billion are fees that will go to foreign universities. It's about 45,000 crores, which is adequate capital to start and run 10 new IITs, NITs, or any such other elite institutions every single year. Now, so far, most of this was data. Here is the opinion part. While the exposure you might get from these universities could be helpful for some, you have to decide whether it is worth the cost. A degree actually does make sense in some situations, and you have to decide. I'm repeating it again. You have to decide whether it's worth it for you, whether the outcome from that degree, whether the 10 years away from your parents, whether taking a loan, you have to weigh it out. You can't just look at the prospectus, see the Harvard campus, see a boy and girl in like lush green grass having fun with each other and say, I want that. It's not worth giving up 10 years of your life for it without thinking it through. If you can make the money back, if you're sure about it, then do it. On the flip side, there are people that think that going abroad has no advantages. That is absolutely not true. The biggest value in college is the network of people you find. Your network is your network. This is something I've learned over 10 years of being an entrepreneur, and being classmates with future influential people is extremely powerful. Even if somebody came in through a donation seat, their parents are probably rich and they could probably get you a job after you're done with college. So those relationships are very important to you. However, the internet has brought the world closer, and after the pandemic, you can find the same opportunities sitting in India. You can grow the same valuable network through Twitter, through Discord, through private communities. It'll never be exactly the same. So if you're too shy to make relationships online, to DM the other person online first, a college might be an option. Or train yourself to be less shy. Remember, and this is very important, you are not going there for the learning. Insane amount of knowledge is available on the web. So if you're giving the excuse that you're going there to learn, remember that you have to spend 10 years to repay this. Finally, back to India. India is not what it was 10 years ago. There are a lot of opportunities in India. Startup sector is booming. The optionality to take risk and do something of your own is crazy. So crazy that people like the Zepto founders left Stanford, dropped out, and came here to build here. There is opportunity in this country.
We got the money, but we poor. You got some money, here's the door. We got the money, but we poor. But we poor.
गरीबी में करूँ मैं क्या हार्वर्ड जाने लोन बड़ा मोस्टली एथलेटिक ऑटोमेटिक ड्रम पे कमी थी नहीं मोटी डोनेशन देती क्वालिफिकेशन ही होती 1% की गिनती कॉलेज ये छेती प्रिविलेज की थी मेंटेलिटी लोन के चक्कर में 20 साल बीती ईस्ट साइड में मैं सरवाइव करता कोटी एजुकेशन बस नाम का यहाँ होती नहीं अपॉर्चुनिटी भी आईवी लीग जाके सीख मिली थी यही जी पढ़ाई नहीं की तो गरीबी थी या गरीबी थी क्योंकि पढ़ाई नहीं की
आईवी